I'm Dave Beck. I'm from Charlotte, Michigan, and I'm 78 years old. I enjoy playing golf. That's one of my favorite things to do, and I play 3 or 4 times a week. My wife and I were on our way over to our daughter's on Christmas Day. We got on some black ice and went head on into another car. And I was riding in the passenger seat, crushed my right ankle. They took me into Sparrow Hospital and debated whether to take the leg off at that time. And my daughter convinced them to try to save it. Then I was moved to a rehab hospital. Spent almost 3 months down there. Got out, got back home, and I was incapacitated as far as walking for about 6 months. And I was able then to use a walker and use a wheelchair, and got around until they took the bracing off of my leg, and I started walking then very gingerly because I was still in quite a bit of pain. And my wife and I would go someplace and I'd have to use these scooters in the stores and stuff, and it just wasn't getting along too well, and I was on Vicodin a lot of the time. I kept going back to the doctor, and he did an MRI and determined that there was a staph infection in the ankle, and he told me that I had 2 choices. They could go in and do a biopsy and treat me, and it might be 8 months before they could tell me whether it was successful or not. And his other option was to have it removed and get a prosthesis. At that point, after a year and a half, I was ready to have something done. I was referred to Joe Springer from Springer Prosthetics, and went in and talked to him and told him what I was getting into and asked him what I had to look forward to. He was very informative and helped me understand what the process was and what I would have to do with the prosthesis. He also had video for me to watch that gave me a lot of good information. It demonstrated different prostheses and people walking in them and how they got around and so on, and just was pretty informative what I had to look forward to. Then he took me back in the lab and where they were putting them together and showed me what the different pieces were and how they went together. Well, I've got a mechanical background, so it kind of fit into my thinking. It was a good session with him. I was so fed up with the problems I was having and not being able to get around. I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, and I had to have medications for depression because of my situation. And I had just gotten to the point that it had to have something done, and the only alternative that I had from the doctor was to wait another 8 months, and then maybe they could do it, make it right, or I could have the amputation and get a prosthesis and be able to get out and go. And I made the right decision. There's no question about it. And at the time I had to make it, it wasn't difficult at all. I'd already made up my mind pretty much at that time that was going to have to be done. And I know it seems hard for people who have all 4 limbs and can go every day to be able to understand how you can lose a limb and still feel like I've been blessed, I've been blessed. Joe met with the surgeon before the surgery and helped determine where the amputation should be to have the best fit for a prosthesis. Then, when the surgery was over, I was released from the hospital. My first visit back to the doctor, Joe came down and met with him again then with me, and discussing how the surgery had gone and how to put the cap on the end of the leg so that it would work in the prosthesis the best. And I thought that was kind of outstanding. I really appreciated that. Joe went through the process and showed me how things were supposed to go together and how the foot fit on the plate that goes into the foot. It's kind of a spring deal, carbon fiber, I think it is. That's all fascinating to me just because of my background. He gave me the best that was available at that time. During the time that I had my old prosthesis, I was involved pretty heavily in draft horses. I used to go to plowing matches and do plowing demonstrations, work the horses in the field and give rides and things like that. Well, after the accident, I couldn't feel safe around the horses because of the pain in my ankle, and I just couldn't step away from them quick enough to feel like I could get out of the way if they happened to move over or something. And so I ended up having to get rid of my horses. And that was probably one of the hardest things I did, because I could walk out to the barn and when I just give a whistle and they'd come running up the fence, I could throw the halters on them and hitch them up and go for a ride. And it was just a good way to live, you know, after I'd retired. Had the surgery in 7, had the regular prosthesis until 12. And in May of 13, through Springer Prosthetics, I was able to acquire a BiOM ankle. And I've been going ever since. I put the BiOM on and not had to go back to the regular prosthesis. I can go out and do things I could never do before. I can walk without a problem. I go out and play golf. If I go for a walk, I can go to the wellness center and walk on the treadmill. I could not do that before. The biggest improvement for me was to be able to get back out on the golf course, because I really enjoy golf. So I'm out there 3 or 4 times a week then, sometimes more than that. I go up and down grades and walk in places I could never walk before with the regular prosthesis and get up and down the way I do now. It's a comfortable piece of equipment to wear. Representative from the BiOM company was at Springer Prosthetics showing the BiOM, and there were 4 of us that Joe had asked to come in and try the BiOM. And at that time, that's the first I'd had any introduction to it. He took the foot off of my prosthesis and took the post off and put this BiOM on. Had me walk up and down the hallway a couple of times, and they tuned it to my weight and stride and so on. And I went outside and walked down their driveway, which had a slope in it and had a dip in it, and walked up and down that thing, and it was a difference of night and day of walking with the regular prosthesis and walking with the BiOM. And I said, man, I'd like to have one of these. From that on, we started working with the insurance companies, and Joe and my doctor at home wrote recommendations for the BiOM and presented them to the insurance company, and they did some negotiation, and it took a while to get it approved, but to me, it's worth every penny they spent for it. It's just a fine piece of equipment, a really good piece of equipment. It lets me do things that I'd never be able to do before. The BiOM takes the place of your calf muscle and your Achilles tendon. It has the articulating ankle that it can be programmed to compensate for your weight and for your stride, for your gait. If you're walking just straight away, it gives you a push with the toe, and as you set your heel down, it'll cushion your heel going down, and that ankle pivots the way your ankle does normally. It makes just a great difference. I can walk up and down grades and walk up and down steps that I couldn't do with the other ankle. If my biological leg was rated at 100%, I'd have to rate the normal regular prosthesis at about 60-65%. I would rate the BiOM at 85%, and it's the top of the industries. And when I had the regular prosthesis, I would get a handicap flag to put on my cart so that it would allow me to get closer to the greens and closer to the tees. I've gotten the BiOM ankle, and I don't need the handicap flag. I don't need to ride the cart on par 3s. If I feel like walking 40 yards or 100 yards to go to a shot, I can walk and not have a problem. It's just been a real boon for me to be able to go out on the golf course and play golf like a normal human being. I could get away with using the handicap flag. I have handicap plates on my vehicles, but I prefer not to do it that way. not to take advantage of it when I'm able-bodied now. That's the way I feel. I'm able-bodied. I don't have to take advantage of the handicap parking and what handicap flag allows me to do. I can get where I need to go by doing it just like everybody else does it. Where before, if the ball happened to be laying in a place where you just can't get to it real well, say it's up on a hill or something or on a slope, with the regular prosthesis, I was not able to get up there to get it and play it. I'd have to declare an unplayable lie for me and move the ball down where I could get to it and hit it. And when I get to a place where I have to walk up a fairly sharp incline, I can walk straight up now rather than have to walk around side hill to get to where I'm going. I walk on my toes. On the BiOM, the toe gets into the ground and the mechanical part of it takes over and helps boost me up just like you would with your calf muscle and with your Achilles tendon, helping you lift you up the slope like that. Before I'd have the other prosthesis, I'd either have to walk side hill to go up or go around a different direction to get there. Now I can go directly to the shot I need to take. And it just makes things so much easier. I've had a very good working relationship with Springer Prosthetics and with Joe. He's been with me all through this thing ever since it started. But with Springer Prosthetics, they've always been there for me. Good outfit to work with. All the people in the office bend over backwards to help you out, to get you what you need to have. I don't think you can find anybody that would be any better. Springer Prosthetics got me into this BiOM, and that was one of the best things that happened to me. It's an amazing piece of equipment. 5 years ago, with the old prosthesis, I would have never thought I'd be able to do the things I'm doing today. I get out and do anything I want to do.